Hey, it's week 3, fantasy football fans. Welcome to Sports Survival and a Rockin Renegades fantasy football talk. We're here to talk about your quarterback woes this week. Um, feel like we were all hit by it pretty hard, and we're going to get into that shortly. But we want to talk about our sponsor this week, Jon and Casti Village. If you're looking for some good Italian food, you might want to check them out. They got great wings, great beer. They used to do a breakfast buffet on the weekends. Check them out. It's great food, and you're going to love it. And I want to throw it out here. My guest, I don't want to say my guest, but my co-host for the week, Jon. There he is, our guru of the gridiron. How are you doing, Jon?
Ralph, how are you, man?
Oh, terrible, man, terrible. It's been a bad week. Bad week of football injuries, and for being playing fantasy football all these years, it's the first time I think I've went 0-4 in all my leagues, and it sucks being the second highest scoring team in 2 of them and still losing. So
that's crazy. There's your guy right there, man. You played me this week, and
I did.
That was the downfall right there, Burrow, man, because he was, if he would have stayed in that game, God only knows what would have happened. I might be crying right now.
I was scheduled to put up over 200 points, and unfortunately, that didn't quite work out for me. But yeah, as we have Burrow up on the screen, we want to talk about the quarterbacks this week, Jon. We want to get into, I think we got like five or six guys that are actually going to be sitting this week, and we want to talk about who's probably out there that you could, pull off the top, pull off the heap, somebody you could, pull in and plug and play, and who still might not be rostered on some of the teams. But I guess we'll talk about Burrow first. They're saying 3 months. 3 months for Burrow, maybe by week 15, 16, which pretty much puts most of the people out of the fantasy football playoffs. If Burrow was your main guy, I know Gene last week he messaged in and he was asking about Burrow and he was asking about Rodgers, and looks like he's going to have to go with Rodgers. But I guess the next best option, if you're looking for your waiver wires for guys, Burrow, I guess Browning is going to be the guy you want to. I don't want to say you want to hang your hat on, but a guy that's going to fill in for the next 15 weeks, for Burrow. Well, I won't say 15, but the next 13 weeks for Burrow. Browning wasn't bad. He's not a bad quarterback. I mean, when he had to play last year for Burrow, he went like 4-3. He put up almost 1,900 yards and 12 TDs. I mean, but he does throw the interceptions. He had 7 of them, but I mean, as you've seen, like last week, he did throw 3 interceptions, but he did complete like 9 of his last 10, and passes. I mean, he could be good. I mean, you look what he did with Chase. Chase got most of his yards, most of his catches. Under Browning. 14 catches.
We look at a guy like that, and what better situation for a backup to be in than with all that talent around him. When you got a guy like Jamar Chase, obviously he's a shoo-in, but Brown in the backfield, and then you got the T. Higgins, just so many weapons. I think in a Browning situation, if you have him on waivers, I think he's worth picking up. You can't do any worse than that. I mean, with that amount of talent, like I said, around him. The thing, like we talked about it earlier today, was the fact that what's it going to be like when defensive coordinators have time to scheme for this guy? What are we going to see? That's the Browning that I want to see when he has like a few weeks under his belt. These guys are looking to, blitzing him and doing things and throwing some of the different coverage schemes over the top. So let's see what happens then. But
and let's face it, Jon. We both know how shitty Cincinnati's defense is. So they're gonna have to throw.
Score points. That's right.
So they're gonna have to hang some points up, but yeah, I mean, Browning's worth a pickup if you have Burrow. But let's just not talk the whole time on Burrow. We had like 5 or 6 quarterbacks go out this week that we're going to need to fill in, and these are starters for people. Brock Purdy, San Francisco. Now, I'm sure Mac Jones is out there in most of your leagues. I mean, guy had a great week, right?
He did.
26 to 29, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, where the hell did he come from? You'd never seen that in New England, right?
No, that's right. And you know what? I think what's nice here is he has a little more weapons than he had in New England at the time. I mean, when you have a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you know, you basically have a receiver and a running back.
Yeah.
You know, and the guy gets you out of bad situations. He's a good check down. But I was impressed the way Jones played. I mean, he made a lot of good throws. He was poised in the pocket. It's if he's on the waiver wire with that team, the way he played, let's see. I mean, this guy was a starter in New England too, so you gotta, he has some games under his belt.
For you guys out there looking for that quarterback, Mac Jones is there. The one I want to talk about, it's probably still on some of the waivers or still that you can still pick up, is Danny Dimes.
Amazing.
You know,
Amazing.
Dan Jones is putting up some numbers there. He's not rostered on a ton of teams. You know, for you people that have free agent points, they're looking to add a quarterback. I'm looking at Dan Jones, I'm looking at Browning, and then I'm looking at Mac Jones.
Right.
All about the devil and Mrs. Jones, right? Keeping up with the Joneses this week, John. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's been tough. But if you need to hang some points, I mean, you're talking about putting up 30 to 40 free agent points to bid on these guys to make sure you have that quarterback to keep your season in check, at least for the couple weeks until you can figure something out. What about in Minnesota there, John? They're saying Cardi is going to miss a couple weeks. Carson Wentz is coming in. Worth a flyer for a pickup. Wentz is so hot and cold. But worth a pickup. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I think if you can't get a guy like Daniel Jones or Mac Jones, off of the waiver wire, I think he's worth a reach. I wouldn't bank on that. I think Carson is definitely past his prime, and we see hot and cold like you just said. But when you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, and another thing we have to look at in this game is Aaron Jones going out for 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's going to be another thing we're going to see. Everybody's talking about Mason. How they love Mason at the beginning of the year, how they were 1A, 1B, running back. Mason's going to get his chance now. Jones is going to miss probably 3 to 4 weeks.
Right.
I wouldn't quite drop Jones, Aaron Jones just yet. But we'll see what Mason would puts up.
We were talking about that in a chat earlier too. The fact that at least in my opinion, I think Mason wins the starting job now. If you look at the way this guy runs, that's that pounded in there, relentless, style. And I think he has, he's not as good in the receiving game as what Jones is. But I think he brings that piece that that will definitely help a guy like Carson Wentz. If they're able to run the ball, they got a really good defense up there. And I like the way they play too. It's a team that's doesn't give up. And I think one of the things that we saw was McCarthy with the 8 quarters that he's played so far. He really only had that one good quarter.
That's true. Yeah.
And that was it. And he didn't really do anything after that. So let's see what we have here. I mean, Minnesota's going to show, what they're made of in these next 4 games, without McCarthy and, and obviously without Jones. I want to see a lot of Mason, and I'm going to see, I want to see Justin Jefferson get the ball too. I'm really surprised. I mean, I'd throw everything to that guy.
I tell you what, could be a big week for T.J. Hawkinson too.
Right. He's on my roster too, so I got to.
He might be a guy worth plugging in.
Going, man. Yeah, he's thrown up a couple eggs the last 2 weeks.
So coming over the waiver wire, speaking of more quarterbacks being out, for those who actually took a flyer on Justin Fields and has been starting Justin Fields after the first 2 weeks, it's looking like he's going to be out this week. Tyrod Taylor is going to be out there, I'm sure. He's a good filler for a week or two. Not somebody that I'd hang my hat on, but it looks like you Fields owners are going to be looking for a quarterback also.
That's another situation there. the way they played against Pittsburgh, was that was definitely not the Jets team that we all know and love. When we see what they did this week against Buffalo, I mean, they got totally trounced, outmanned. I mean, you can name it. It was a bad performance.
And you know what, Sean? The Steelers should have did the same thing to them.
Exactly.
I blame that on them not being prepared to play that game. But that's for another talk.
You already know what I think, man. I totally agree.
I know, and I'm right there with you. What about Jaden Daniels? There's talk about him being able to play this week, the possibility of him playing. But if not, they're going to run out Marcus Mariota. Now, Mariota's been in the league for a while. He's a decent starter. He's nothing fantastic, but a guy you might be able to plug in and get 12, 13 points out of him. Maybe he throws for a touchdown. They got a nice team there, and it looks like they're going to be running out Bill, the running back, this week. The rookie's finally going to get a shot with Eckler being out. McCoskey Merritt is going to get the big start. We'll see what happens with him. I was high on him to begin with. We talked about him and him finally getting a chance. But I see the Jaden Daniels talking about a sophomore slump. I don't know how much of a sophomore slump it is, but just with McLaren, coming late into camp, not being up to speed. The guy that seemed to be taking a lot of touches in the backfield and receiving is Debo. I mean, Debo's back to the Debo we've had for a couple of years.
That's right.
So it's nice to see him get back. But I'm kind of wondering if Daniels is going to be, if he's going to play this week or not.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to look at you have to look at some long season here too. I mean, do you want to have your stud quarterback, playing out there with an injury that could possibly be long term, if they're not careful. So I don't know what they're thinking there. I don't know what Dan Quinn's thinking, but I think if it was me, depending on how severe that is, do we want to take a chance with Mariota out there? He's a guy that runs the ball well in the pocket. So he's another piece for them. You have Debo, that could sit in the backfield, do it. Like you said, Merritt. I definitely want to see this kid, get a couple good opportunities. I think this is it.
Yeah, I do too. He's going to have to show something here. Hey, John, I got a question for you. You like Italian food?
Yes, I do.
You ever been out to Giovanni's?
I've not.
Giovanni's down at Casti Village. Giovanni's down at Casti Village, right as you come down Brownsville Road, come down the bottom of the hill. Great place for Italian food, great beer. They got a bunch of beers on tap, great wings. Check them out sometime, man, or you call ahead, reserve some seating, 412-882-6500. If you like Italian food, it's the place to go in the South Hills.
That sounds good, man. I need to get some Italian, man. I can definitely use some of that.
That's what I just speaking of Italian, I could use some myself. I just threw down a burger before we got on here from McDonald's. But hey, as we're going through this stuff, let's talk about why don't you give us something there, John? Your player of the week.
My player of the week. I mean, we got Fast Lane Coffee, something that's near and dear to my heart. But my player of the week is none other than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, when we saw him in Cleveland, this guy really got the raw deal coming out of Cleveland, and it's he's definitely paying them back and more so. But this guy, he took a ton of licks in this game. Some things that you would think were severe too. He brings that team back and he never gives up. He's poised, to win that game with 5 seconds left and in a manner that they did. This guy is definitely deserving a player of the week. And, I'm a huge Baker Mayfield fan. I love what this guy does. I think, Tampa Bay and that, that good, system that he's in, he's a leader. And I see them, obviously, I see them winning the division again this year and maybe going a little further in the playoffs.
I think you're just jealous, Sean. I think you like that boy band, like mustache thing, beard thing he has going on.
Man,
there.
You got me.
Mayfield, I'm saying I hated watching this game. I lost my big money league by 2 points, and I had Tampa Bay's kicker, and he dinged that post. So instead
it
of
was bad.
me winning by 2 points, I end up losing by 2 points. So, but Mayfield this week, I mean, he didn't put up stellar numbers. You know, he was 25 for 38, 215 yards passing, you know, 2
Right.
TDs. But that last drive, like you said, for him to step up and to, you know, bring that team on his back to set up the 25-yard touchdown run by Nick Chubb at the end there to put them over the top, you know, he was stellar that last drive. That's, you know, that's for sure. And yes, we're getting pinged here. I think Cleveland did mess up. You know, Cleveland's still looking for their next quarterback here, and I think they had it and missed on that.
That's right. That's right. And then you see what they did here, Deshaun Watson.
Yeah,
You know, all
right.
you fans out there, you know, and
Yeah,
that guy. It couldn't happen to a better guy too.
that's true.
Deshaun
That's true.
Watson, man. I love seeing Baker do good.
Hey,
And
if
I want
you guys out there listening, if you have any football questions, if you have any things you want to bring to us or ask us, you know, anything about your lineups this week, you know, we're more than willing to take your calls, take your questions. Um, so we're going over the waiver wire, John. So we said Mac Jones possibly should still be out there for pickup.
right.
Browning's definitely going to be out there for pickup. Wentz is going to be out there for pickup. Tyrod Taylor, Mariota, and possibly Dan Jones. Now, in a list of guys, you put Dan Jones first, and then Browning, and then Mac Jones. Is that how you would run it? And then fill in with the rest of your guys?
I would run it that way. I mean, I think the way Jones is playing, you know, that Colts team, and that's the reason I got them all, man. The Eric
I
Dickerson,
see that. I see that.
But I mean, what a surprise! I mean,
Right.
Nobody expected this Colts team to come out and play this way under Daniel Jones. I mean, he wins the job in camp. You know, we thought Richardson was going to be the guy, and then Daniel Jones comes in and just takes it to the next level, man. It was
Jonathan Taylor's looking like Jonathan Taylor, and we got this coming across. What about Russell Wilson? You know, Russell Wilson looked good. I mean, they had a tough loss, but thrown for over 400 yards, and you know, Russell looked like the old Russell, but here's the deal with them being 0-2. How many more starts do you think he's really going to get? Now, I say, you know, they say they're going to hold Dart out for the year, but you know, if they lose another 2 games, they're 0-4. You know, that might be something you guys might want to look at too. Russell Wilson's out there maybe for a week or two, pick him up, but you know, I would pick up Dart right behind him.
Right, you did a great job in our league too, picking up Dart. You know, man, that dynasty league having sitting there. I was going to grab him too, man. You grabbed him like 5, 6
2. I obviously didn't do that good of a job, right? You know,
hey, that happens. It's just bad.
Highest scoring team, John, and I'm 0-2. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but that's fantasy luck, man. If it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any at all. So
you got a good team, though. I look at that roster, and I just, you know, I scratch my head. I said his team is stacked for a dynasty.
You know, with Burrow, with Barkley, with Jacobs, with Hill, with Chase, with JSN, with you know, like I said, we do IDP. I have Kelsey, and then you look at Roquan Smith, and then I have Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa. I mean, how can I lose? But apparently, in fantasy football, I find a way. So
it's amazing. I mean, I think that's just a fluke, though.
Yeah, it happens to me more often than not, John. But you know, I've been a highest scoring team many a times and not making the playoffs. But you know, that's just my luck.
Crazy.
Other players on the waiver wire, guys that could possibly still out there you want to talk about, and the guy that there's 2 receivers that I've been high on. And that was the one rookie, the kid from Tennessee, and I made the mistake of giving one guy in our league the I'm not going to name any names, Andre, if you're listening in, but I made the mistake of, he was like, hey man, I need a couple sleepers, you know, a receiver. Can you help a brother out? And, you know, and I gave him that the Ella kid from Tennessee, and he ended up outbidding me.
Dirty.
Andre deserved, yeah. He ended up outbidding me, and the other guy, Torrey Horton. Horton actually, I don't think he practiced today. I think he was a little dinged up, but you know, the kid, you know, actually got to see his first touchdown. If you're in a dynasty league or a keeper league, you know, let's face it, you know, Cup's not going to be there, you know, next year. You know, Horton possibly steps in and takes over. So might be a guy you could possibly stash away. Another guy that's starting, the league on fire, at running back in Jacksonville, right? What about Travis Etienne? How long is that going to last, man? Where did that come from?
I had him last week as my sit, just thinking that, hey, this could be and then you think Cincinnati, and boy, man, those guys are just, they're key to letting me down every week. Anytime I say something that's, oh man, come on, Cincy's, we're going to pick them here, and then they just get smeared. But Ralph, I don't know, man. The guy is playing lights out. I think he has something to play for. That's what it is now.
So on the waiver wire, he shouldn't be out there, but I'm seeing him in some of the waiver wires. Is that Bashawn Tootin, the guy backing him up?
Right.
If you're looking for a running back, maybe a guy you need to, a flex, you need to plug in, you need to play. A guy you need to sit on your bench for a little bit. I think it's only a matter of time before he starts getting some touches. Now, like I said, Etienne's starting the world on fire, but I don't know how long that's going to last. But as it is still early in the season, though, John, as we talk about it, if you did lose a quarterback, one of the worst things you could do is give up. You don't give up. There's guys on the waivers. Plug and play. It's fantasy football is supposed to be fun, even though sometimes it's not. It's
right.
It's a good thing to get with your friends, to rib them. To tell them how much they suck and how bad their draft picks are. That's the best part about fantasy. There's no reason to give up, and you know what I mean. Keep on plugging. That's all I can tell you. If you guys, you can always email us. You can always call the show if you have questions, or you can find us at any of the local bars, and probably even down at Gianna Villa's, having a couple beers or two. So one other guy, John, if you're looking for, and chances are he's out there on a lot of rosters. Now, he just signed 2 weeks ago. And we trash, Cleveland, bunches and bunches. But it sounded like Judkins is getting the starting job. So that pushes Ford out, and that pushes that Dylan Sampson, is it? His
Sampson,
name?
right?
Sampson. So it pushes him to, but they're saying Quinshon Judkins is getting the start there. Any thoughts? Did you see that yet?
I did see it. You know what? When you look at the way Cleveland is playing, okay, I don't see. I see a team that's, it seems like they're almost there. You know what I mean? It's just like they look for ways to lose games like they always do, and it's just like, when are these guys going to get over the hump? There's enough talent there. Flacco's playing well. Amazingly. Judkins, if he's, like you said, he's probably out on a waiver wire almost everywhere. I would definitely take a stab on him. If you have somebody that's, the bye week's coming up eventually.
Here's the deal. If you lost Jones this week and Judkins is out there in your league, take a chance on him. Drop 20 points, drop 20 fantasy points on him, depending on, what your fantasy money is. Most places, or most fantasy, you get like, $100, $150, throughout the year that you can spend your fantasy dollars to pick up players. Right. Yeah, you want to take a chance on a guy, take a chance on Judkins. So that would be my pick of running back. Tootin, Judkins, and I'll tell you what, another guy, John, he's probably the best backup running back in the league, but he's sitting behind Bijan Robinson. It's Tyler Algier.
He is.
Algier, when he gets the chance, he puts up numbers all the time. If you're looking for a guy that's out, maybe take a flyer, and chances are Algier's out there too for you guys to pick up.
Good pick.
Yeah, it's been a bad week, John. Bad week for injuries. Did I miss anybody? Oh, I got one more for you.
And I got one too. Go ahead. You go first.
You got one. Okay. I'll throw him out there. He's your boy, Scatterbro.
Scatterbro, man. You got to see him play a little bit. Gets his first touchdown. It was cool to see that.
Well,
But
there's Tracy this week is I don't know if he's playing or not. He was very limited, and I guess it didn't go well for him. He's kind of questionable to play this week, but might be another guy. I'm sure that's on some of the waivers that you could take a chance on.
I think so too. And one guy that I have, I mean, I want to thank Todd Bowles for allowing this to happen. Is I had Bucky Irving. Takes the team the whole way down the field, and he gives it to Rashad White to score the touchdown, which ended up blowing my fantasy league at work. But for that loss, but that's another guy that's I've seen him out there too, Rashad White. I mean, he gets enough touches, and he gets touches, in the red zone a lot of the times. I mean, so if you can get guys that are going to get the carries in the red zone and score those short touchdowns, that's points, man. That's what you want to look for. The two good guys, man. Like you said, scatterbrain. That's what we. But he's going to be a good player. Yeah, I think the kid's going to be a good player, though.
I agree. Like I said, anybody, if you have any questions, if you were going through the fantasy football blues, losing your quarterback like I am, or a lot of people out there are, there are options for you, especially for you new starters. I remember my first year ever doing fantasy football, John, and I lost my guys all within the first 3 weeks, and I'll never forget. I had Jamal Anderson, I had Herman Moore, and I had who was the other one? Vinny Testaverde were my first 3 picks, and I lost them all in the first 2 weeks. And if that happens to you, like I said, you keep on trucking. You never quit. You never give up. Because if I would have quit that, I wouldn't have all these championships under my belt. So
that's right. You just got to keep plugging. I remember that Testaverde injury too, because we were on vacation, and I remember that torn Achilles.
Oh,
it was brutal.
And then I watched Herman Moore go down right after that in the same week. I'm like, oh.
Kenny Stabler.
There's a blast from the past, huh? That just tells you how old I am. And that tells you how old John is, from Sports Bible that runs this show. I mean, he remembers Kenny Stabler. At least he didn't say Y.A. Tittle, right?
That's right. Sammy Baugh.
Sammy Baugh, right.
To the old school days. You know what? He brings up Kenny Stabler, and I'll tell you what, I still can't believe that guy wasn't in a Hall of Fame before he passed away. That's one of the true kick in the heads for sports fans. I mean, if you're not a Raider fan, obviously, but we respected those guys. And Kenny was a great quarterback. He never got the accolades that he deserved, but it was good to see him in a Hall of Fame. I'll tell you what.
It sure was.
He got there when he was alive, though.
That's true, and you see, not to get off the football subject, but you see that with the Hall of Famers with baseball too. Pete Rose. It's one thing I have against baseball, man, is you take your greatest players. It's supposed to be a game of numbers, man. You have your all-time hit king, not in the Hall of Fame. You have your all-time home run leader, not in the Hall of Fame. You have players like Clemens, never going to get in the Hall of Fame. These are your greats. It's not about, are they a nice guy? Half of them are not. You know what I mean? But, you watch this for entertainment. These are your best players. You put them in where they belong, man. That's just my opinion. But
Rose was that was a disgrace right there.
It sure was.
Right out I know some people will say, well, yeah. But if you had a chance to watch that guy play,
it's amazing.
That was my baseball hero, man. That guy was just.
You and me both. I remember Saturday mornings on This Week in Baseball, and they would play that music, and they had him coming around at third base and doing that head first slide, and you know what I mean. I mean, the guy was balls out, man. He gave it his all. He gave it his all, and not to be in the Hall of Fame, it's a shame. But John, we're about out of time, man. Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll have to get together, drink some beer. And then, guys, if you want to get a good night out, you want some good Italian food, Giannavia's, they're right down in Casti Village. Great people, great beer, great food, great Italian food. Call for reservations, 412-882-6500. Go get yourself some Italian, John, and I'll see you next week.